Hello everyone, this is Danish from jobskillshare.org. Today we are going to talk about Lab Talk Part 5, and in the last video we discussed about load balancing when you go to the Network Plus lab, and in here we discussed the lab about install and configure network load balancing. In this lab we are going to talk about configure switching feature, and the rest of it is about switching. And this is very important when you try to do the Network Plus certification, and when you go and try to apply for networking jobs, NOC level 1, and specifically if you're going to that job where you are going to be working on a Cisco switches and routers and things like that. Okay, this is what I mean by the network positions. And of course, in these type of positions, people are going to definitely ask you questions about, do you know how to configure a switch? Do you know how to configure a router? Do you know how to take a backup of a switch? Do you know how to restore from the backup? Do you know some troubleshooting steps? Can you tell me some basic troubleshooting on the switch and router and stuff like that? As you can see, even the Network Analyst 1, they put so much emphasis on, networking and switching and routing and CCNA and network monitoring and stuff like that. So it is important that you should know about networking. Now, I have already mentioned this last time in my other videos too, that you can study about all this stuff in very detail, like a theory and some labs that ProfessorMesser.com is doing right here. You go to, this is a new certification, and you can see this is where you can click on it, and you can take all these videos right here. They are extremely big videos, so just take your time. But if you are going to be doing technical stuff like practical practice, then you're going to need the lab that I have in front of me. The benefit of this lab is that you have switches, routers, and everything in just one area online, and these are the real routers, and you're basically practicing on the same router if you have something physical. So as you can see, if I go to this lab, there's a lot of things that this lab cover. Trunk configuration. Now remember, all of these terms, trunk, VLAN, native VLAN, and all this kind of stuff, you need to know this. You really can't just jump into the lab and just think that you're going to do something and then you will know this stuff. Now this is where I tell people that this is where it's a little different than help desk. And in help desk we give you a tool, and that tool is something that we all use, and you just learn on the fly, right? It's like a real hands-on practice, and you just learn it. But here you need to know about this stuff, how these things are working, because if you don't know the whole theory behind it, then it's going to be really hard for you to learn networking. And like I mentioned, you can learn about the theory from ProfessorMesser.com, YouTube. There's a lot of content on the Google, even in the Cisco site. You can learn everything about Cisco and Cisco routers and switching. There's so much out there. And again, once you are ready to practice, when you learn that theory and now you want to come back and actually perform these labs, actually going into these labs, and then actually going into these labs and doing it, then you can come back to these real routers and switches right here, and then get on it and try to do all this stuff right here in the PDF, where it's a step-by-step information. You have a topology right there, and then you have given all these routers. These are all, like I said, real routers, very powerful. So again, you don't have to spend that money on a physical stuff where it's laying down for many years, and then you have everything step by step, and you just get on it and do it. This is where you really need to get that practice, that hands-on practice when it comes to switching and routing, because people will ask this stuff in the interviews too. But it's really important for you when you start working. You want to be comfortable with your work, and this is the stuff that you really can just quickly do, like searching and like help desk. Help desk, you gonna get away with a lot of things. Here you gotta be on the point, because if you're working with a company and they're having issues with the routers and switches, you really don't have many tools available out there. You're not going to find too much information in terms of like can I do it this way or that way or that way. You really need to know your stuff over here. That's all I'm basically like feeding that into you, that hey, you really need to do practice on this. Okay, without practice, this is going to be a really hard job. So finally, my suggestion for switching and routing: make sure you do this lab, and then after this you have more labs about switching also. So if you look at it, you have configure switching feature, then you have configure and verify switch security features, and then you have switching concepts, and then this one you can skip this one, backup and restore. This is about Windows. I mean, you should really know this from A+. Or you can actually go to the help desk course that we have on jobskillshare.org, and there's a really big section about imaging. And then you can jump to the routing, and this is another kind of like relating to your networking side. You also need to know about routing. People will ask you questions about routing and switching, and usually when you go to more advanced positions, you really get into the routing a little bit more advanced, because you need to configure more advanced stuff. But this is where you really need to practice. Okay, so in this video I just wanted to mention that this is that networking labs right here, the 4 ones right here. These are your from here, this one, this one, and this one. These are your extremely focusing network. You know, when I call you a network guy, a networking person, and I have an issue with the network stuff, this is what you need to do then. Switching issues, routing issues, and then try to get into these, servers. Use PuTTY. People are going to ask you, have you ever used PuTTY? Now, if you have never used this, then I don't think you're going to be able to land a job or versus someone who really know this stuff. People can say, oh yeah, I use PuTTY and I can get into the router this way and that way. Maybe they will throw another tool like Mobile Exterm that I have actually shared with many of my members. That's a really cool tool also. So you're kind of like you know what you're talking about. And then the other stuff like Wireshark and stuff like that. Try to understand what's going on between these switches, how to capture that, and all that stuff. You will learn that in these labs, and this is very important stuff for you if you really want to become that engineer or you want to advance your career. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in our part 6. This is part 5, so you're going to see part 6. And if you don't know how to get to this, make sure you go to JobSkillShare like this. Type JobSkillShare, click on JobSkillShare, click on the playlist right here, and in playlist you will see the network playlist right here. Thank you.